Greetings, this is Griff Ruby with part 16 of my series, Sedevacantism, the Catholic Perspective. Now, as I was just getting into at the beginning of the bishops can act as a college. They have the authority to act. And probably one of the most important things they need to do, acting as the College of Bishops, as bishops who are all assistant bishops to the Diocese of Rome, what they need to do is be able to organize a conclave. Now, I know as people say, well, people have tried conclaves already and it didn't work. There's several reasons, aside from the whatever disqualifications the individuals trying this before might have. One being that Lumen Gentium is on the books, and basically you'd have to take it off together with all the bishops of the church in collegial act. And two, they have not worked with the lawful traditional bishops of the church. And without getting their participation, their involvement, their organizing something, and they really must be the ones to organize how the choice is to be made and by who, be it themselves or some other group they designate. That's up to them. That is what it would take. Now, when all of these things are done, the result really would be a pope, a man who has the full infallibility of an actual successor of Peter. The church, for the first time since November 21, 1964, at that point has a true, visible, lawful successor of Peter, and probably since even further back than that, we'll have somebody that can really lead her. Now, important thing that they should do, you could say, well, all right, maybe he'd be in some legal or canonical or valid sense a pope, but is the world going to recognize him? They already don't recognize these others. Now this might have a little more dignity, but, is the world going to recognize this? Well, one of the things they should do before they all say, okay, that's been a good meeting, thank you all for helping out, you go home now. Not yet. One more thing. Now is the time, with newly elected Pope and the bishops all together, to say, let's consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And they do it exactly as prescribed. Then they can go home. And I guarantee you, before they get home, something extraordinary is going to happen. Some, I don't know, miraculous apparition, a visitation, something. Maybe probably in Russia, might be somewhere else that in the weeks and months and years that follow gains a particular following in Russia. I don't know the particulars. God will work however he chooses, but it will be something dramatic and miraculous that will bring about a conversion of Russia. I should not be surprised to see it's within 5 years of that fact, the Russian Orthodox Church and all its clerics submitting themselves to this elected Pope. You see, that could happen. You got to remember, God is with us. We are his church, and the church is oftentimes helped by miracles. It's time for a miracle. And this is what it would take. Right now, if there's no miracle, we haven't asked. And in our lack of charity to be willing to act together the way some of us should, perhaps that is another reason that we haven't had as much in the way of the miraculous as we should. But we can, and we will. And as sure as Jesus died on a cross for your sins, the man elected as Pope by this manner shall be Pope, shall be infallible, shall be able to show with whatever signs and wonders it takes to show. This is the Pope. His bishops and the priests and the laity and the religious all attached, subject to him as the supreme pontiff. We are the church. There will be miracles. We will really be able to begin anew what was done from the beginning. And that pretty much encompasses all the rest of what needs to be understood about our whole situation. Now, with all of that understanding of where we are, how we got here, how we can get on with it, where the church is visibly, you see, and we have done no violence to any Catholic doctrine. Nothing. It's, 500 years from now, how are they going to say the church got through this century? If you want to say the Vatican organization was the church, you're going to have to say infallibility doesn't mean anything. If you're going to say, well, the church didn't exist, well, you can't say that. You'd have to point to us. You'd have to. So now you begin to see the full truth of where the church is. And now, if we can go to a traditional priest, that's our priest. That's our regular parish priest. You say I belong to Father Radecki's parish. And Father Radecki is a regular priest, with faculties from his regular lawful bishop, Pivarunas. You see, and Pivarunas, as a bishop of the church, can, acts with the same authority as any other bishop. You see, the same has continued. The church has continued. God is still with us. And now let's go way back to the very first installment. I had that illustration of the rocket. We were tracking the rocket with the radar telemetry. We said about we were starting here, and we had our wild point. Now we know what's really going on. We found that what they were looking at here wasn't really the rocket. It was the booster. The rocket just got multiple stages. One part takes off, its engine goes, gets so high, they run out of fuel. They let it go. The next one, much smaller, has another rocket engine and more fuel, continues with the payload, you see. Like the moon rocket. Do you realize the first part of the moon rocket, about half the weight of that entire thing, is used up in about 2 minutes? So, in a certain sense, it's kind of like that rocket. You get to the point where the Vatican organization is like that piece falling away. The church is like that payload going where it's supposed to go. What they were tracking down here was, by mistake, just the booster, which falls to the earth. But I'm now shown the other points through here that lead up to this point up here that the non-Sedevacantists thought was a wild point, that the Sedevacantists just sees this one thing, but they have no thought about, anything else, just, here, and the points beyond. It is not a wild point. The payload has been going this way, and this wild point is not a wild point. It's a true location. It is a true fact. And the other people, what they were tracking was something else. So that summarizes and concludes my series on Sedevacantism, the Catholic perspective. I thank you for the patience of listening to me.